February 9th through February 15th, and we're going to start off this week with the moon in Scorpio, and this is the last quarter moon in Scorpio. So this is about closure. Last quarter, we started the first quarter, I think we started in Aries, so it's kind of like a fiery forward energy. And now we're closing it out in Scorpio. And what a great sign to close things out in, because Scorpio is all about closure, right? It's about endings and new beginnings. So last quarter moon, if there's some things that have not been able to get, if you haven't been able to tie up loose ends on maybe some contracts or some projects, this is a great time to do so here, this beginning week of February 9th. Now, on the 10th, the moon's going to move into Sagittarius at 2:22 a.m. And Venus is going to make its move into Pisces. And Venus in Pisces is considered to be an exalted position. It's going to stay there from February 10th to March 6th. And I call Venus in Pisces the romantic, because it really is. I mean, if you were born with Venus in Pisces, you probably have some of that romantic kind of vibe. Now, remember, Pisces is ruled by Neptune. And when I talk about Neptune, if I have to just call it like a couple words, I like to call it the fairy tale, or, the ever after story, because we can get a little delusional sometimes with a lot of Venus and Pisces energy. There's going to be a lot of there's just a lot of attraction with Venus and Pisces, okay? And but it doesn't mean that we're necessarily seeing clearly, so please keep that in mind. Also, keep in mind that this week on February 11th, that is the date, Wednesday, February 11th, when the moon's in Sagittarius. That's the date that we're going to move back to in the Mercury retrograde. So we're going to talk more about that. But basically, everything that happens from February 11th through what date? Through Mercury retrograde, basically. Everything's going to be revisited. Okay, so we'll talk more about that when we get there. Okay, so Sagittarius, 10th, 11th, 12th. And then the moon moves into Capricorn on the 12th, midday. And great time to get things done, right? Capricorn, really good at that. And speaking of Capricorn, Capricorn is ruled by the planet Saturn. And on Friday, the 13th, Saturn's going to move into Aries. So 2.5 years in Aries, or in Pisces, and it's finally moving into Aries. It had been in Aries briefly, but it retrograded back into Pisces. So now it's going to stay in Aries from February 13th until April 13th, 2028. So there's going to be a lot of things, Saturn's responsibility and things like your career and your long-term standing in the world. And Aries is a very kind of self-centered sign, right? Because Aries is all about who I am. Aries is like your childhood and the development of your brain and your body and your experience as a human. So Aries is also very much forward, right? Ruled by Mars. So we're going to see a lot of forward movement when it comes to these things in our lives, but it's going to be very interesting to see what this period brings. Now, we go into a Capricorn weekend. So Valentine's Day, the moon will be in Capricorn, even though, I don't know, I guess it doesn't sound like really warm and fuzzy to have the moon in Capricorn, but Capricorn's solid. And we've already got Venus in like this, airy fairy. I love Pisces, don't get me wrong, but fairy tale signs sometimes, right? But Capricorn can keep you grounded. So we'll appreciate that part of Capricorn Valentine's Day. Now, the next day on the 15th, the moon's going to move into Aquarius by 1:17 a.m. And on the 15th, the sun is going to be square Uranus. And let me see here. I just wanted to read a little bit of my notes. I have so many notes. The 15th, I wrote down Sun square Uranus, unexpected upsets, we're close to the eclipse that's happening on the 17th. Uranus is considered the wild card. So there's surprise relief, maybe. For others, it might be the final straw. It's liberation or collapse, free of a situation. You will get your bearings soon. So, I can't tell. I'm not going to get too into what I'm hoping happens here at this time of year, but I hope that it is liberation or collapse, because things just can't continue the way that they are going in our lovely country here in the United States. Now, let's give some cards for this big week ahead, this Valentine's Day week ahead, right? So with the Sun square Uranus too, it's like, let's take it down to your own personal life. You may see things in your relationship, right? And it's like, do we want to continue? Those kind of things. We may see friendships, because Uranus is related to friends. We may see things more clearly with the Sun. And so don't take it personally. If the choice is to step away, then that's the choice. Things will be seen more clearly. Okay, now I'm going to give you a couple cards for this big week ahead, this Valentine's Day week. Get an oracle here. Again, I haven't looked at any of these cards. Let's see what we've got. So the first card is the Page of Pentacles, and my attention goes to the dog in the background that's like digging up the bone. The Page is young energy, and Pentacles is anything of value. He looks like he's really like looking forward, he kind of knows where he wants to go. This is like Capricorn energy to me. And so there's a focus here, and maybe, I don't know, is the dog digging up the bone or is the dog burying the bone? But it's almost like maybe you've been here before, right? That dog either has been here and is getting that bone out of the ground, or he plans to come back and get it, right? So maybe returning to old ideas, but to me, this is kind of like solid energy of like, where are we moving forward? Your next card is the Four of Cups, and it feels emotional. Looks like there's a lot of depth here, but she does look at peace. And Four of Cups is often just kind of like resting, waiting to see what comes next. And you have the Wheel of Fortune. Interesting that this version of the Wheel of Fortune has that lightning bolt in it with the snake around that wheel. And we're ending the year of the snake, right? I think it happens a little bit later in the month. Usually it's earlier in the month of February, but this month, the Chinese New Year is a little bit later. Moving from the year of the snake into the fire horse. So it's kind of interesting. I think this is the last week before the change. So this is the last squeeze out of that snake skin, of the things that no longer serve you. So I want you to pay really close attention, especially at the Sun squares Uranus. I think it's going to give you that final little push there to see the things that don't work. All right, now your oracle is Mora, she who hesitates, ponder, delay, confidence. Interesting. Her ribbon around her almost looks like a snake to me also. Okay, let's look up Mora. I think it's Mora. Let's see what the book says. It says, Mora, she who hesitates, turns back from the open doorway. Even though she can see the sun streaming through, she is not sure it illuminates her own gifts. The violin hidden in the shadow demonstrates... Do I see a violin in the shadows? I guess maybe. She demonstrates how hesitant Mora is in spite of her talent. She is a young person poised on the edge of her next big step. She delays taking forward motion because of fear and uncertainty. It is the fear of the unknown that so often holds us back. What would you say to Mora, whose name means hesitate, to encourage her to follow the bright light? The lesson of this card is that hesitation holds you back. Look closely at your own shadow to see what fears are standing in your way. Acknowledge these fears and then set them aside. It is now time to summon the courage and confidence to act. Trust in your talent. Step into the spotlight. So Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like that goes along with that page. And the spotlight may be a long road, but you have to begin. Okay. And so, and because this Mora card almost feels like this Four of Cups card to me. And the Wheel of Fortune saying, let's get a move on it.